always been interested in teaching at a small liberal arts setting. So it just kind of reinforced that notion, and it was really exciting to see that there is active research going on how to better teaching methods and improve them for a wider audience. So that was extremely exciting for me. And then to participate in a TAR project where I could perform the research was also a really fun way, and it reinforced my idea that I would like to teach as a future career.
The most challenging component for my project, again, was just trying to figure out what it is I actually wanted to do. You have this really great question in your mind. My teaching this research project kind of grew very organically. I had a course, a statistics lab course that I taught for a semester. And then based on feedback for the next year, I wanted to change some things. So that seemed very easy to do. But then in terms of making it an actual research project and having objective research methods in place, I had to figure out, okay, how am I actually going to do this? So actually figuring out sort of the mechanics of it. What are these exercises I wanted to create and use an intervention? What are they actually going to look like? When am I going to implement them? And then how am I going to have the students rate the effectiveness of them?
One of the most important things about the TAR project, I thought, was coming up with not only a hypothesis or an idea that you wanted to test in a class, but the most challenging and most enriching part of it was trying to figure out a way to assess whether that idea was working. And I think that's where a lot of teachers get stuck a little, because it is the hardest thing to see whether the ideas you're implementing are meeting your goals and whether your students are reaching the learning outcomes. And so I think it is definitely something I will keep in mind as I teach, even if I'm not doing a formal TAR project. I think it will be really important to keep in mind that it's important to come up with ways to evaluate the things you're doing in the classroom that will actually assess whether what you're doing is addressing the original question you started with.
I think the most valuable thing was learning about new classroom innovations, learning about assessment techniques, which I didn't think about when I was a teaching assistant. So that was something new for me. And now I'm incorporating that into every class I'm teaching. So that's helpful, and it is enhancing student learning also. The most valuable experience from that is that one technique, assessment technique that works for one major or department doesn't work for other. There are different sizes of classrooms. Some work for small size classroom, like focus group discussions can be done. But then like surveys, it's very difficult to get student participate for the large classroom.
For the Teaching as Research project, there were several challenging components to it. I think the most challenging for me was coming from my dissertation research to education research and adjusting and getting ready to do that research. Learning how to navigate the literature for education was challenging because I was used to my dissertation literature and was comfortable with that. And then designing experiments was also pretty challenging. In my discipline research, I know what kinds of experiments answer what kinds of questions. And so that was a challenge with the Teaching as Research, to make sure I was designing questions that were really getting at what I was trying to study. And that's where my mentor really helped me a lot. She would say, I see what you're trying to ask, but this is the response you're going to get. And then as soon as she said that, I realized and said, oh, of course, that's how they'd respond. But what I'm really looking for is this. And so learning how to craft good questions to really ascertain the insight that we were trying to get for the study was probably the most challenging.
We saw the hardest thing was narrowing down a project. So the students have these grand ideas of what they'd like to do, and the projects start out very, very big, and we have to focus them because just like with not regular research, but research that we do in our labs, you want to solve all the problems at once, and we have to focus down and get them to realize that you need something well-defined to be able to complete within the course of a single semester, within the course of a single class quite often. And so getting them to take their grand vision of the entire project that they want to solve, the research question they want to answer, and narrow it down to something that you can actually do and complete within a semester, within the time frame of the TAR project, was the biggest struggle that we saw.
They don't have time to solve, how do people learn math?
Exactly, exactly. And they want to do that, though.
They want to do that. Well, just like they also want to find the cure for cancer.
Right.
And build buildings that
Right.
don't fall over.
Right.
We don't have the time for all of that.
No, our campus is the same way when they start. It's big, and you spend a lot of time up front iterating and bringing the project down into a doable scope within the context of a semester. And I think that reinforces the research skill of asking measurable questions in your disciplinary research, and so it's a really good way of reinforcing those as well. Mm-hmm. We also find that students really struggle with this idea of learning communities. They want to put two people together and call it a learning community. So we spend a lot of time talking about and iterating early on about how to really integrate that pillar into the type of project that they're doing.
I know it's more of maybe it's a structural problem, is that it's hard for these students to find opportunities to do this. The grad students don't often get an opportunity to teach. Certainly our postdocs rarely get a chance to teach a class. And so often they're in this really support role. They're grading, or they might be running a section somewhere, and they don't have any control over the course. And so they don't have a chance to go in and design and carry out an experiment. So getting the opportunity is one of the struggles we have.
We do pretty well on our campus because students will come in having TA'd a course for a number of years or a number of semesters, and there's just something that needs to be changed, and so they're excited about doing that. Or we'll even engage faculty in the conversation about how do you want to change your course, and so we come up with these opportunity ideas, and then the students can sort of pick and choose the types of things that they want. So there's a pretty nice balance that's formed over time.
I was actually relatively pleasantly surprised that we didn't have so much of a problem with that faculty really embraced this because they saw it as an opportunity for free labor, that something interesting could be tried in their course, that they didn't have to actually go design the surveys or run the data, do the analysis that was being done for them, and they would get the results. And so faculty really did embrace it because of that. They saw it as an opportunity to try something out that they themselves didn't have time to do. They got this student who was very interested and willing to do this and work on this project. So not uniformly, but we had very strong interest for our first year that we did the TAR projects from among faculty because of that.
Well, for me, my personal definition is, because I'm a scientist, is applying the scientific method to teaching, which is something I've always wanted to do and to instill in students. And that is teaching, like research, is you're asking a question and you're trying to solve a problem, and you need to get feedback from doing that. So to me, the perfect TAR project, TAR project, is attempting to fix a problem and then assessing and collecting data alongside that problem in order to see, have you done the job that you set out to do or not?
So I think that's a great definition. One of the things that I always found in our TAR projects with graduate students and postdocs is, even though they're fairly advanced in their own research careers, they still struggle with the notion of, the pieces of a TAR question, right? Mm-hmm. Sort of, is it measurable? Is it well-defined? Is it a small enough space that the problem you're solving, the implementation you're going to do, can be something that's doable within the time frame?